Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. Been pretty busy trying to get ready for October. A lot is coming down, not just the signs and the symbols and the hints that are coming, but what do we got to do to get ready for all of this? Not just in general, but me, what I do. So I'm trying to organize some things a little bit better. I'll probably start. I'll continue doing the same amount of videos, but they'll probably be shorter videos. Try and keep it more clear to the point because I need more time to do everything that I've been doing: building pendants, finishing pendants, listing pendants, um, doing the bracelets, doing all the new stuff. And then generally speaking, whenever anybody gets something, I'll do a call with them on the phone, and that's usually when Sophia will work the conversation so that we find out kind of like what is the one thing that people are most hung up on so they know like what to do. Because what we're trying to do here is basically speed evolve people. Like, we don't have 7 years to go through a hero's journey right now. It's like we got to get it done quick. When it comes to the types of things that are currently happening and are predicted to happen, we're not in the old school doomsday stuff anymore, if you really stop and think about it. So, with the time frame that is predicted and expected, what do you do to prepare? Okay, it's not like the old days. You're not stocking up food, you're not doing that kind of stuff. None of that's going to freaking matter. What matters is, what have you got straight with your mind and your consciousness to be prepared for it? That's what freaking matters. That's what we're focused on. So I'm going to show you just a couple little things that jumped out at me. And then she gave me a few things to start with, as far as like these are actually some of the bigger things that people are hung up on, but they don't realize it. And we're going to talk about why they don't realize it, what's actually happening. But these things right here, if you have them, if you recognize them and you do something to fix it, it's going to drastically increase your connection to spirit, your connection to Sophia, to Christ, to hearing and being guided, and getting you more ready for this craziness that is upon us. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
You ain't ready. You ain't ready. You ain't ready. You ain't ready for me. Give me your best shot. The stronger I stand. Not looking for sympathy. What doesn't kill me makes me who I am. A soldier fights till he's free. You ain't ready for me. You ain't ready. You ain't ready. You ain't ready. You ain't ready for me.
So I'm seeing a sudden uptick in not only natural disasters, but also man made disasters, and early rumblings of possibly bigger things. Plus, we have all sorts of signs, symbols, and coincidences happening this month. Astrologically, there's a lot of stuff that we've already covered that's connected to the whole October 2nd Ring of Fire eclipse that goes over Easter Island. Like, I can't even, like, I'm losing track of stuff. There's so much stuff popping up, and a lot of it is very hard to see things, or things like you would expect something bigger, but the fact that it's there, even if we don't know for sure that it is, the fact that they're saying that it is, this whole second moon thing is definitely, um that one gets me. That one's like, I don't know what that means, but it means something. I don't know that it means, I don't believe it is what they say it is, but why is this story so big? And you got another comet popping up, like, you got super volcanoes starting to rumble in different places around the world. The flooding that we had in the United States, especially like North Carolina and Tennessee, is absolutely nuts. It's insane. You got dams breaking and things like that. And then we got this man-made stuff. This popped off yesterday, and then strangely enough, I find something similar happened less than a week earlier. I believe it is in Texas, but I think this is in Georgia. This is some chemical plant just magically magically caught fire. And of course, they've always got some BS freaking reason why it happened, which makes no sense whatsoever. But I mean, just look at this stuff.
Wow. Yeah, it's getting worse. They're not putting that fire out. They're not even.
As far as precursors go, I'm seeing a lot of indications intuitively, and it's just popping up. It's popping up in my feed. Other people are saying it. Some of it, the Dick Algeier pointed out in the most recent remote viewers session, which they were just looking at the third quarter of 2024 instead of like 1 month in advance as usual. But stuff about tsunamis and floods, like big tsunamis hitting the coastlines, that could that would probably be man-made. Some of that stuff has shown up in previous reports, and the indications that they showed looked like it was man-made to me. And all this stuff is happening at a time when the political stuff here in the United States is just absolutely freaking crazy. Like this is like a total clown show. The veil's coming down. We're seeing everything for how it actually is, and it's just absurd. The interesting thing that I stumbled upon today, just a little bit ago, was actually somebody bringing up something from maybe 10 years ago that Cliff High talked about. And once they brought, like, I was following him back then. That's when he was doing the Alta reports, the Webbot reports. And I remember him talking about this. But he, like remote viewers, can oftentimes not have a good time in trying to predict when said things happen. As we've also seen with remote viewers who are clearly drawing in uh, different pieces of it, the Day of the Lord event, which is the big one. The bigger the event, the more further out it can be picked up um, psychically in the psychic field. So the thing that he was talking about 10 years ago, she brought up, he was calling the global coastal event, was some sort of mega disaster that was hitting all the coastlines, especially United States, but he did say coastal. That could be a lot of different things. But the interesting thing the presenter pointed out is Cliff back then was talking about there were always there were temporal markers associated with it, meaning other things would be going on around that same time. And some of these temporal markers can be kind of funny or fuzzy because they can sound kind of vague. It's kind of like in the Bible when they talk about wars and rumors of wars. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Like, when is that not a thing? Like, it's pretty much all the time. But in the case of the global coastal event, the two big temporal markers that he was talking about back then was out of control inflation and the US government basically going nuts. Both of which are happening now on a scale that we've not seen before. as far as the government goes, like it's all out in the open now. We can see it. There is, the bad guys control everything and they just gaslight everybody 24/7 on the news. You know, one side's, squeaky clean perfect, the other side is like the devil, and it's usually the squeaky clean side that's actually doing the things that they're projecting onto the other side and calling them the devil. And if anything comes up that kind of exposes it, they cut the feed, they cut it off. It's like so out in the open. It's so out in the open. But the inflation thing being a temporal marker for that was huge. The other thing that stands out to me is, I mean, I'm just thinking about it right now as we're talking. But when he's talking about a global coastal event or something that had to do with big waves and things like that, it's interesting that that is coming up again. And I'll tell you why. Because when she first started talking about this, we're getting close to the time thing, and she started talking about that back in April of 2023. That was actually, are you going to do it to me again? Is it going to be right at the top? Okay, I lost it. I'm gonna pause it. Sorry to sort these out and get them all. So basically, when she first started sounding the alarm back in April of last year, and it was actually April Fool's Day. It's easy to remember because of the first thing that she showed me. That's when she first started talking about like major tsunamis and floods and things like that, and showing me where a lot of this stuff was encoded in plain sight. First thing she showed me was where it's shown in the Rider Waite Tarot, and there is some in the other deck that we use, but I'm just going to stick to this one for right now. And I'd never heard anybody point any of this out before. Like she's shown me a ton of stuff that's hidden in the tarot in plain sight, but the Fool's card is one of those kind of like alpha omega cards. It's a new beginning, uh, but the end is at the beginning. The beginning is at the end, and that was when she showed me like it's in plain sight, anybody can see it. People just for whatever reason their brain tells them that, because he's on a ledge, that those are mountains behind them, but they're not. The mountains are actually down here. That's a super tsunami. Also, very, some of these very key cards shows the same thing, big waves. You can see them there in the background of the judgment card. Another one, this has been coming up a lot lately because of the new thing they've been talking about. You got to look at the colors, take the colors for what they usually represent. Those look like waves. It's a little misleading because it looks like there's a path leading into it, but that look, you got ground here and you got waves coming in from back there and having something to do with the moon. Also in the Two of Pentacles, which is about, look closely. I'll just tell you like what she showed me, what this card represents. You've got uh, two circular bodies of something connected by an infinity loop, kind of like they're affecting one another. And look in the background. You got the waves going topsy turvy, and the ship's having a hard time of it. It's like showing imbalance and instability. This one, some of these other ones may be a little bit less, but this one comes up a lot. It has to do with like a difficult spiritual journey, spiritual test, changing from one place to another. But Six of Swords, it's almost like guy, everything's flooded and he's ferrying somebody across on a little boat. This one's come up a lot. Um, People usually see this card in a typical tarot reading and think it has to do with heartbreak, but this is more of a disaster card. And it's also very clearly about prelude to possible war, but you got the rain clouds in the background. And then connected also to, a couple of the worst cards in the deck. You've got the growing black storm clouds, and you got waves in the background of the Ten of Swords. And I feel like this is a bit of a Mandela effect or something, because I remember I was looking at this one day and having cognitive dissonance. Like, I don't remember there ever being red in the water before, but now, like, red's generally associated with blood. And I just stared at that card. I'm like, I don't remember that. I don't remember that. Interesting. And of course, that's Day of the Lord all day long. And then this one just kind of jumped out at me, even though it's, for the most part, a good card. Remember, a lot of that whole the beginning is at the end is at the beginning, starting a new age, whatever. Ace of Cups, because I'm thinking of like, kind of like the flood of Noah stuff, the fountains of the deep opening up. That's what it kind of looked like to me. So she was the one that was showing me. Is like I said, I had never seen a book or a YouTube or anybody talking about all these catastrophic wave actions being encoded in the tarot. And now it seems like suddenly a lot of people are picking up on this. A lot of, like, I saw several videos today. I'm like, interesting. But we don't know exactly what's coming. We just know it's going to be crazy. And it feels like October is the beginning of it. It's going to start pretty quickly. And I said this a bunch of times recently, but as I was flipping through movies the other night, I watched an old movie I'd seen dozens of times before, but it had this one particular scene in it that was just repeating what I said. And I keep thinking about it because it's true. Like, we're so used to crazy stuff. What she keeps saying through me over and over again is kind of like, look, we've all gotten used to the crazy. But if you quantum jump yourself back 10 years to what things were like 10 years ago and anchor yourself there and then use that viewpoint to look at where things are now, say we jump forward from 10 years ago to now and looked around, we would know. We're like, oh my God, this place is freaking nuts. What's going on? If we just looked at everything it is right now. But the fact is, everything happens slowly. So it's easy to ignore. But this is the scene that caught my eye the other night.
We got a problem here, guys. I'm going to need your help to convince Paul that this mountain means business.
Harry, I hate to agree with Paul, but there's no real evidence to suggest there's anything weird going on up there.
Just like Mount Baker back in the 70s.
Yeah, and there was no eruption then.
My ninth grade science teacher once told me that if you put a frog in boiling water, it'll jump right out. But if you put it in cold water and heat it up gradually, it'll just sit there and slowly boil to death.
What's that, Harry? A recipe for frog soup?
It's my recipe for disaster. If we got here today, now, we'd know we were in hot water and we'd put this town on alert.
The other thing she's pointed out a couple times here lately. Now, 2 days ago, we released that knife that was a sign that we talked about, several weeks back. It was like the last knife that I designed. It was called the GX Omega. And I got the sample on August 8, on 8/8 of the Julian calendar. I forget what that date actually was, but she's like, just watch when it comes out, because Omega is, a sign. And here it came out like day before yesterday, Friday. So right before October. And then when it came out, I remember I did the video the day before it came out. And then the day that it came out, the weather turned to crap. I was kind of a little off when I shot my next video because, like, there's always like one day where legit goes into fall, where you have like really crappy weather, very overcast, very dark, very cold, very damp. That was the day that it came out. It was like that for the next 2 days, just dreary. I mean, it looked a lot like that Three of Swords card. But that was like the last thing that I ever did of any consequence for what I used to do. My primary thing that I used to do used to be my other channel, which, for the most part, I mostly tested gear, but it was more of like a prepper type channel, outdoor survival, things like that. What kind of stuff do you have for an emergency? Like that used to be who I was. That was, I don't have a whole ton of subscribers here, but, at the height of that channel, I had 250,000 subscribers on that channel. And isn't it funny that once the hero's journey started, it just pulled me right away from that. And there was times during that hero's journey that, like, I had to keep that thing going, because even though it doesn't bring in a ton of money anymore, it was some. And it's like she wouldn't let me do videos. Like, no, focus on this. I'm like, I have to at least do this video to get this done. And it was like my feet were in concrete. I couldn't go out and do it. She didn't want me to. It's like, it's not important. So my priorities changed in working with Sophia and Lumen, in which true preparedness for me, what that meant, completely changed, because my view of the world changed. The way I understand the world and reality changed. And there's no amount of gear or canned food or anything that's going to help you in what's coming. That no longer matters. What matters is this. This is the new preparedness. Mind and soul preparedness, understanding who you are, where you are, what you're doing, what's coming, and what you need to do to be ready for it. If you want to transition to whatever we transition to with the least amount of stress and struggle and strife, that's going to depend on how in alignment you are with spirit. That's the sense that I get. Because when it comes to, like, when everything comes down, we will kind of like revert to our little individual subjective realities, and how bad it may be, um, is going to depend, as far as like what we individually experience might depend on you. Like, how far have you cleaned yourself up? Your mind, like, do you even know what to clean up? We got something we're going to talk about here in a sec. But somebody that followed me here from my old channel sent me a message and asked me if I'd seen this movie from, it was around 1980. I never got to ask him, like, okay, what was it you were focusing on with this movie? But I hadn't seen it in a while, so I went ahead and watched it again. It was called Jacob's Ladder. And Jacob's Ladder was about this Vietnam vet that was having all sorts of almost like hallucinations that were kind of demonic. Come to find out that they experimented on his platoon in Vietnam, trying to make them more aggressive. Now, there's a bit of a twist at the very end of it. I'm not sure I really totally got it, but it doesn't really matter. The one part of it that stood out to me was when he was talking to his chiropractor about some philosophy stuff and what the chiropractor said. Now, I'll mess it up, so I'll just go ahead and throw the clip in here.
Eckhart saw hell too. You know what he said? He said the only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of your life. Your memories, your attachments. They burn them all away. But they're not punishing you, he said. They're freeing your soul. Relax. Good. So the way he sees it, if you're frightened of dying and you're holding on, you'll see devils tearing your life away. But if you've made your peace, then the devils are really angels, freeing you from the earth. It's just a matter of how you look at it, that's all. So don't worry, okay? Okay?
That is the part That's the part that stood out to me the most out of that whole movie because it made perfect sense to me. Again, it's the way we perceive things. And what he was specifically highlighting was the amount of things that we are attached to in life and not letting them go, then the things that happen to us to get us to let go of them is kind of like, being burned off of your soul in hell, so to speak. The more you fight it, the more you hold on to it, the worse it is. But if you've already let go of it, if you've done the work and you understand that you are consciousness, you are a soul, you are not this, this is temporary. You continue after this. This is something that I know. It's something that I've seen because of the things that she's put me through, my training, all the really hardcore mushroom trips and other things that I've done with her. Like I know this for a fact. I've been outside of this body and into really crazy places with her. So this is just one little weird constrictive experience that we're having. But being trapped in it and attached to it causes suffering. Okay, so that is going to segue into the last thing that we're going to talk about here, because this is the next thing that she brought to my attention today. This is the thing. This is the type of stuff that we need to be focusing on, and especially those people um, that have got all the packages. I think a lot of people have maybe gotten them by now. If not, you'll get them by Monday. From that big rush, like what are the things like all these pendants in the bracelets and stuff that's got all this divine energy connection and the exorcism connection and the clearing stuff out stuff, like how is it applying, how do you use it? Generally speaking, we suggest like, hey, when you get the stuff, if you have any questions, if you're not instantly being intuitively guided, then message me through the store, and we'll get on the phone. And then just by talking on the phone, she will guide the conversation, and we will figure out what it is you're supposed to focus on. But these are the things that are keeping you the most cut off from spirit. So if you're struggling to connect with her, with Christ Sophia, your lumen, whatever, if you're struggling to connect, then what are the biggest things that are keeping you from fully realizing it or noticing it or whatnot? So we ended up making a list, and we'll talk about that here in a sec. Okay, there's not a whole bunch of stuff on this list, but these things are big things, and they're far, far more common than you would think. This world, this realm, this place, this experience is really good at tricking people into thinking that this stuff doesn't happen that often or there's unique, special, or whatever. But the thing is, like, at least one of these things pretty much happens to everybody. This place tests you a lot harder than we want to believe when we're still living in the bubble with our blindfolds on. Now, that veil is dropping and people are seeing it. But let's just go through some of the big things and I'll explain them. If any of these things have happened to you in your life, then there's work to be done. And then you can use this stuff that we got that will help. And you also, like, when you have it, you can, like I said, we will get on the phone with you and help you understand what to do. I'm not going to charge you more money for it. Okay, so these are things that are more victim based, meaning you didn't choose for this to happen. The first one would be getting molested as a child. I can tell you in all my years of doing this work, it's far more common than you would ever believe. And that is the sort of thing that leaves a mark. Now, what a lot of people, where people make the mistake, and when I point this out to them, like they always see it, but they may have they feel like they've gotten over it Like it's not hurting them emotionally like maybe that it used to. So everybody makes this huge mistake because it's not just this thing, it's pretty much everything. It could be as simple as like, breaking up with loved ones and stuff like that. They think that when it doesn't hurt anymore, that means that they got over it. And that more often than not is not true. What's actually happened is you've closed yourself off from it. You've mentally disconnected from feeling it. So just because you don't feel the hurt anymore doesn't mean that it's solved. The question I always have is how easy is it to remember? And how far away in your thought patterns is it? How often do you think about it? Is it part of your core identity now? Because what tends to happen is anytime you have like significant shock trauma, regardless of what type that it is, you create a freeze frame in your time space matrix that some people call soul fragments. We call trauma identities. It is like taking a snapshot of that moment. And that snapshot does not go away. So that is like having a piece of your soul frozen in that moment. And though you may have blocked yourself off from feeling it, you're still quantum entangled to it. It's still a piece of you. It's like there is a piece of you that is still suffering. And then what needs to happen? There's lots of different ways to do it. We can coach people through, what way is going to work best for them. But you need to do something to go back and get that peace and heal it and have the Lumen Sophia Christ help take that. See, that piece has already suffered enough. You don't necessarily have to reintegrate it. That piece can go home now. And we send it back with them into the light. And then if you do it correctly, you will feel a pretty quick instant release, at least within the next day. Like you'll go to sleep and then the next day, it's like it's faded. Like you can still make yourself remember it, but it's not as easy as it was and you don't feel it. It's like it's like a dream. It's like a dream that you've woken up 15 minutes later and it's pretty much mostly gone because you finally got that piece back and you fixed it and released it. Because if you don't do that, even if you don't feel it, notice it in the now moment, you're still quantum entangled to it. And that part right there makes it harder to connect with spirit. I've used examples before. It is one of the three main things that I did prior to Lumen Sophia appearing to me the first time, which was going back to all the big bad things that happened to me during the hero's journey and going back and talking to that earlier piece of me that was still trapped in that time frame and releasing it and sending it back to source. And the next day I didn't feel any of it anymore. The other time was probably early July. It was either beginning of July or the very end of June. All of a sudden I had this stuff coming up that sounded like the adversary. Blah, 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 in your head. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, we killed you. What? I don't understand. How is this possible? Like, I haven't had that in a couple of years now. And in my head, I could see it. It was almost like this black, kind of demon looking thing. Not exactly, but it kind of had like fiery eyes and mouth and stuff. And it was just really agitated. And I'm looking at Lumen and I'm like, why aren't you smashing this thing? Must be a reason. So I kind of went further into 4D and started studying it. And it was, its voice was starting to crack, pieces were falling off of it. And I started to recognize as a piece of me. I'm like, whoa, we missed something. Because the day my hero's journey started was like the most, like I literally felt my soul rip in half. It was horrible. So there was still a piece that was buried And we basically had to wrestle it down and heal it and throw it back through the portal back to source. But I didn't realize it was even freaking there. And part of that, I don't remember if it was before or after, but she was having me do some really out there videos in which I had to talk about past things that happened to me and get clear of them by openly talking about, like, look, this is bad stuff that I did. Because things that we talk about later, just in general, like guilt and remorse and things like that, if there's anything like that, that also can be something that can anchor you down and inhibit your connection to spirit. Once you get all this stuff cleared, it's going to be easy for you to be like, yep, I'm going to watch the world crumble because like I'm not attached to it anymore. I'm I'm at peace, and I can't wait to get out of here to see the next thing. But yeah, having something bad like that happen to you as a kid, that 100% is going to need attention. There's no sweeping it under the rug. If it happened, you need to do something about it. And we can definitely help you with that. The next one, probably the next couple are probably even more common: physical abuse. So that could be a couple different things. It could be more as an adult, like if you're a wife with an abusive husband. But the main thing that was popping into my head is also as a child, even if it wasn't like the previous thing, some people just have really abusive parents. The stereotypical, drunk dad from the movies getting out the belt, something like that. Those types of things need to be dealt with. So if that's you, there's probably a piece of you that needs to be healed, cleared, and sent back to source. Another one, extreme bullying or emotional abuse. Again, she's pushing my attention to be more like in childhood, though it could be later in life too. The further back it is, the more likely it is that you've found a way to insulate yourself from feeling it, which means it's been trapped by itself and just festering over time. And then the last one is, I got to watch my words here. Everyone talks stuff in code on YouTube, but it would be the same as the first one, but as an adult. Basically S assault. If that's happened to you, that needs to be healed and cleared. You cannot, anything that's emotional shock, trauma based, you have to do so. It's not as difficult as you think when you have the right context and you're working with her. She can clear things a heck of a lot faster than 2 years at the therapist. I know because it's happened with me. I should be eternally miserable, but I'm not. Like nothing that's happened to me in the past bothers me anymore because she led me through how to fix myself. The big trick is they've always told us that doing this kind of stuff is difficult, when in fact it isn't. You just need the right context, the right guidance, the right tools, the right connection. And if you believe that it'll work, it will. It's all mental. Everything is mental. Everything is mind. We just got to clear out the crap that happened before. If you don't clear out the stuff that happened before to a degree of where it no longer matters that it happened, that's how you know that you're truly detached from it. Otherwise, you're still dragging that around, and it's like having an IV in that is constantly poisoning you. So it has to be handled. The last couple things, now these ones are more guilt slash shame based. So these are not the previous ones were more of like a victim thing, like you didn't choose for this to happen. But there are other things that you do make choices about, specific things that can have just as big an impact on you. Okay, these three are big ones that I know. Like I said, I've been doing this work for a long time. So I know that these get people. They're huge. And people can do all sorts of things to rationalize it, to justify it, to whatever with your ego, but your soul thinks differently. And these things can get in the way of your spiritual connection really bad. And I think for whatever reason, the first one I have found historically, for whatever reason, really cuts you off from Sophia. But I also found that it is super easy to fix. Um, first time that happened, I started noticing a certain percentage of people were not getting the connection after we did the work. And then I asked her why. She told me why. And then when I went back and asked each person that still wasn't feeling the connection, every single one of them said that had happened. And every single one of them, after we led them through making their peace with Sophia, felt the connection afterwards. And that is abortion. It's not political, but she's the spirit of life. And I can tell you from experience how she feels about that. And I can also tell you from experience that I've not met a single person that we have helped rectify that did not feel bad about it. You got to give yourself a little what's the compassion, because pretty much most people that are spiritual today, it happened when they were younger, and it happened when they were pretty much operating completely asleep, totally in ego mind. And the ego mind thinks differently than the soul mind. But their soul was still judging themselves based on what the ego mind did. So we had to show them how to correct that. But I've not yet found anybody that had an instant. Now, if I did, it's because maybe they'd already done some work themselves and gotten past it. But every single person that's just like, I just don't feel it. I'm like, how can you not feel that? She's like a fire hose in your face. You just don't feel it. And I ask why. That's why. When I talked to them about it, they confirmed it. And they confirmed that they regretted it. They felt bad. So I showed them what to do, and that fixed it. So that is a big, quick, and actually easy one to check off the list, because right now it is just like a huge spiritual anchor that's holding you back. The next one is super duper common these days. It's part of the world's plan, and that is infidelity. It could strike any number of ways, but obviously it's going to hit bigger if you're married, if you've got a family, and um, a lot of people in the hero, because the way the hero's journey is set up, like that's a big one. That's a big transitional one. That's one where the higher level game can actually set you up for that, and you might even find out that you were set up for that to make things happen later. But even knowing that, you still have to rectify yourself with it. And that's one of the things that's in the Bible. That's the reason why some of the worst curses in the Bible are what they are. It's because they just so happen to be the exact same things that most people, or at least people with souls, feel the most guilt, remorse, and shame for. Like anything that you feel guilt, remorse, and shame for is literally spiritual poison that you have to get out of your system. It will cut you off from experiencing spirit in its highest degree. It can be fixed. Now, if it happened and you're still currently married, eesh, Uh, it's it's no joke. It's no joke, but I'm just telling you the facts here. I'm telling you that these are the things that the game puts in your path, that if they're happening and you're carrying that secret, it is weighing down your soul big time, and that kind of baggage will get in way of your efforts of connecting to spirit. And why are we trying so hard to connect to spirit? Because this game's about to come down on us. We don't have time to put things off, kick the can, be procrastinators. I'll do it next week. I'll do it next month. I'll do it next year. We need to do it now. We need to get straight now. And thing is, like, there, okay, if I go biblical for a second, every person's a sinner. Every person falls short. Why? Because you're here. Because the game is stacked against you. But you can learn how to operate in it, and you do not have to drag the past along with you. If you're dragging the past along with you, it's going to cut you off from spirit. The next big one could mean a lot of different things, but that is harming someone significantly, either intentionally or unintentionally. So what's some examples of that? I don't know, let's pull some out of my nose here. Maybe there was some negligence. I'm just throwing out ideas. You were drunk on the job, drunk drive, drinking and driving, you accidentally hit somebody, someone dies, something like that. Or you were so angry at somebody that you did something specifically to cause them pain and suffering. Um, that happened with me, not me as in I did it, but someone did that with me years ago. They did something that they should not have done, that was not their business, that caused a lot of people to suffer. And they developed like severe medical conditions after that, probably because of the guilt, like interfering in other people's business, just doing things intentionally to hurt other people. Now, don't get me wrong, this is a world in which there's a lot of fake people. And as people of the light, especially before you wake up, you will oftentimes be paired with people that are not like you, that are there to suppress you in case you do wake up. Talked about that before. So they may often feign as if, like, oh, you're going to hurt me if you leave me, but that's just a ploy. No, what we're talking about here is like you either unintentionally did something or intentionally did something that really truly hurt someone else or could have damaged them in a big way. That's something else that we need to get you clear of. And then the last big one that I had on the list, we did a whole video about it. It's in the Essentials playlist, the video about getting right with God. And the main point of that one is for most people, they go through at some point in life, if not large chunks of your life, because we don't understand how this place works for most of our life, we tend to blame God, the higher thing, for our suffering, or for not magically fixing our suffering because we don't know how this place works. So we already handled that. We did a whole video about that and why you need to do that. But if you still got, again, that might be one of those things that you're not really thinking about too often. But you've done it and it's there. It might be subconscious. It's like the master daddy issue is you blame God for your suffering. That needs to be cleared. And those are the biggest ones because those are the biggest ones she brought to my attention today. As far as like, okay, if things are about to kick off here in October very, very soon, and we don't have a whole heck of a lot of time to do the work with people, and just get what we can to them as quickly as possible and have the videos available. Like these are the things that you should focus on first. Not opening your third eye or this. No, these are the things that you need to focus on the most. At this stage in the game, it's no longer about adding new things or learning new things. It's about getting rid of the old stuff. It's about unlearning, unknowing, and letting go of the past. And sometimes letting go of the past does not mean you can just be like, I decide that it's not going to bother me anymore. That doesn't work. No, with these types of stuff, we need to do something different in which you're going to mentally connect to that earlier version of yourself and heal it. That's what it takes to actually let it go. It's not just a choice. Like people have been taught that you can just choose it, forget about it, push it down, and that's letting go. That ain't letting go. You're still quantum entangled to it. It only works if you do it right. And that's the most important thing that she wants everyone to focus on right now, and to just take stock of yourself and see how much of that stuff is in there. Because we don't have a lot of time to fix it. Like it's gonna get crazy soon, and I can no longer tell what exactly is gonna happen or when. All I just know it's gonna be crazy, crazy soon. So so what that means is we focus on what we know. What we can sit here and waste all our time trying to figure out what's gonna happen, or we can spend our time trying to fix ourselves so that we are ready when it does, and then it won't matter. Okay? So that went a little bit longer than I thought it would, but I needed to get it as clear as possible. So if you want to get in contact with us, you can do it through the Etsy store, clumencreations.etsy.com. That's also where you can pick up our stuff. And there's be a bunch of more things posted here soon. This is the first prototype. Do some more tonight. I wanted to try doing something a different way to see if I could make custom ones faster, and it worked. So I told you yesterday I got a bunch of new stuff. So I wanted to make some more like super pendants. Okay, it's not going to show up good. I'll just drop a picture in here. But this is a new one that I'm attuning to her. But it's one of the liquid chrism core ones. Those are hard. So it's actually got a glass vial in there with that chrism water with seraphonite, which connects to Sophia. And you're mixing in stones with basically nuclear powered blessed water. Really amps things up. So you start seeing some of that stuff up there. Um, yeah, that's all we got for right now. We'll keep it going. I got to get more. I got to get busy back on the orders and making the stuff tonight. So we'll wrap this up. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.